Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for about an hour. Just double checking that I made everything public again tonight. Are we live?
Yes.
I'm getting a weird message over on YouTube. So we go live every night and we talk about guns for an hour. This is an effort to have a conversation about guns. So we hope that people will participate in that conversation using the text chats out there over on gunchannels.com. Community we built almost 6 years ago now. A place where, for people to have a conversation. And then we're watching the text chats on all the platforms out there. We've got people jumping in from all over the place, all over the country. They join in over on gunchannels.com. And we got Dead Horse jumping in from Utah. Thanks for joining.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
You bet. Then we got Dano jumping in from Illinois. Thanks for joining in.
You're welcome.
Thanks. And then Travis jumping in from Nebraska. Thanks for joining.
You had to take a break.
Oh, and then I'm down here in Arizona. So we've got people joining out there from all over the country. We don't know who's out on the one side there, the big platform where they don't really like our property and they don't like the laws that we appreciate. But we don't know you're out there unless you say something on that side. So if you want to say what state you're from, that'll give some people an idea who all is out there. And of course, if you're on the gun channel side, bunch of green dots over there. See all kinds of people over there. Taters and Pete and Tim and Travis and John Z and Zorro and Pants and Dead Horse is in here. ETP and Dano. So if everybody wants to say where they're at, that'll give everybody an idea of what part of the countries are listening. So let's see. A bit or before we started the show there, me and Travis were chatting a bit, and I don't know, I think you were kind of talking about tech, I guess. Yep. And we were kind of chatting about one of his many gigs. And it got me to thinking about educating people about firearms. So, I mean, I don't do this very often, but occasionally somebody will, say, hey, I'm not familiar with firearms, and I've heard you are. Can you tell me about them, or can you maybe even take me to the range, or what's it like to shoot a gun, or something like that? So I thought it'd be interesting to chat about that, something that's often overlooked. I don't know if we've ever even addressed it on this show, but maybe we could spend some time, if everybody's interested, talking about how to introduce somebody to guns, what things to cover, and perhaps what order, so as to not flood them with information or to distract them with too much detail, but to give someone as efficient and as useful education about firearms as possible. Maybe, what do you think? Go. No dead air. Hashtag no dead air.
The way that you approach the person about taking those guns out for the first time, it really kind of depends on your relationship with them. Are we talking about a coworker? Are we talking about a family member? That really can have an effect on how you do it. Do they have any experience with them prior to going out? I kind of keep those things in mind whenever somebody approaches me about wanting to learn how to shoot, or just curious about firearms, or maybe they want to buy that first gun. That has a lot to do with how I approach them, and like how we would set up the initial encounter to talk about the firearm and actually shoot the firearm and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not giving like lessons or instructions, but if somebody would like to go to range and shoot, they say, "Hey, I'd like to try to, shoot a gun for the first time. I've never shot one before, or my family's thinking about getting a gun. Where do we start?" I'm like, "Well, let's go to the range and take a few out. I'll take you out there with me, and we'll go have a good time." Okay, cool. It just depends if it's a coworker, if it's somebody who's, just depends on the relationship, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think?
No dead silence allowed.
No.
Okay, no dead.
I want to give you guys a chance to talk. I'm just kind of curious how what works for you.
I guess I would start off as far as what are you interested in? As far as asking a question, if somebody said, "Oh, I understand that you're into firearms," and I say, "Oh yeah, is there something you have a question on or that you're interested in?" And kind of let that lead the direction.
Okay, so Dead Horse, you want to throw anything? Because I'm thinking this might be too open-ended.
Okay, so can you repeat the question first of all?
I guess I was going to just leave it at what are we going to talk to a new gun owner, or no, excuse me, not a new gun owner, or somebody who's not a gun person came up to you and said, "I've heard you're a gun person. Can you tell me about guns?" I think that's kind of where I started it, but that is maybe too open.
Okay, so that would be a lot harder for me to answer than literally how would I teach someone to shoot or whatever, or introduce them to shooting, just talking to them about guns, how would I just talk to them about that, and that's a way harder question, and yeah, it is kind of an open-ended question, but I think I would just start off to tell them that throw all the misconceptions and stuff they've seen in movies and stuff out the window. I would let them know that, I think, first thing, that hey, what you see in the movies and stuff, that's not the way it is in real life. And I think that's probably where I would start with, is that all the misconceptions of guns.
Well, I can maybe talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I don't really care about telling people how to shoot, because that's dumb. I don't really care how you want to teach somebody how to shoot, because that's almost like teaching somebody how to ride a bike or something. I mean, it kind of depends on your experience and the person. So I don't know if that's all that lends itself to this anyway. So that would be more like a video topic or a live, video thing at the range or something. So instead, why don't we talk about somebody politics wise, or maybe society wise, or something like that? Or is that too boring? You don't want to talk about that? But I was going to say, what I can do is maybe play, I don't want to say devil's advocate, but play the role of the anti-gunner, get you started, and then let the live viewers out there, or the viewers that are alive that are out there, interact with the chat, and then I could relate from the chat room to you three or whoever else happens to join, how you would reply. So for example, if I started it out with, and any of the three of you can answer, together or one at a time or whatever, unless it gets confusing, and then I guess I can go left, right when there are only three of you. But if I were to say, I'm playing the role of an anti-gunner, or not an anti, excuse me, a middle of the road, right? I'm just some person from your school, work, church, whatever, friend from school or whatever. I'm just some person who who you've got a reason to want to tell something, to have this conversation, not somebody who you've never met before and you could just easily walk away because you got something else to do today. So if I said to you, if I started it out with, "Hey, remember, I know we never talked about this, but you're into guns. Why is that?" And then I'm going to let you answer that, while hopefully people that are out there listening start feeding me other, middle of the road questions that we can listen to how you guys address them or answer them, if you guys are up for it. So Why are you into guns?
I would say a big part of it for me is I enjoy the challenge of trying to hit the target. It's exciting and it's fun when you're able to hit the target, say at a long distance, or say different types of targets. I really enjoy it. I like the challenge of getting outside and setting up all the gear, and taking the rifle out and just trying to connect with that target at a long distance or a short distance. To me, I enjoy the concentration I have to put myself through in order to hit the target. I said it's a bit of a rush when you hit the target because you feel like you've accomplished something. You're battling with the elements, and just a chance to kind of get outdoors and enjoy things a little bit. That's a big part of shooting for me. Something I enjoy doing. And then I could go on to say then there's also the hunting aspect of it too that I enjoy doing. Just a lot of fun to get out in nature, and I just kind of enjoy my time outdoors.
If you just want to kill, can't you set up a trap, though? Do you have to use a firearm? Can't you just set up a punji pit and get your jollies killing animals that way?
I believe that it's important to have a quick and humane kill if you're going to be harvesting any kind of game, and so I'd prefer to do it with a method where I know it's going to minimize the suffering for the animal. And
And then what are you saying, that it's less discriminatory if I just dig a pit out there with a bunch of punji stakes in it that anything could fall into it, and any one of the herd, and not a specific one that you're calling out intentionally?
Yeah.
Well, it's also very potential that the general public can fall in that same hole.
Yeah, that can be somewhat dangerous, especially if you're talking out in a wooded area where there could be other people out walking around or other individuals that are hunting at the same time.
So now you gunners, you gun people, are going to suggest that it's better to have your guns and not have just holes in the ground with punji stakes in them, I guess. Whatever.
Well, a specific target versus something where anything can fall in that pit and be injured.
What's the odds of a bird falling in that pit? I rest my case.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a dog just run out of somebody's yard that falls in that pit. I mean, do you want to be the guy that has to go up there and say, yeah, my random punji pit,
Punji stakes, yeah.
injured, severely injured your pet, your beloved pet, where at least with a rifle, it's very, very specific as far as what and when something is taken.
So, and when it comes to birds, waterfowl, creatures like that, it's really hard to capture them with the pit when they fly. And it's important to manage those numbers and maintain those numbers so that the ecosystem stays healthy. And there's a regulated number of game you can harvest, and you have to follow those rules and regulations when you do so. And using a firearm to do so, again, is one of the most efficient ways to harvest the game. It's one of the most humane ways to harvest the game, to ensure that you're able to, keep those numbers within a manageable amount.
Yeah, because the alternative is emaciated and diseased animals out there in the wild, and that is a horrific death that takes weeks to a month.
The alternative is having government agencies tasked with going out there and keeping track of population management, not just unskilled people running around.
And they do, and that's why they tell us how many we're able to harvest out, and what kind of a season we're allowed to follow, and the numbers we can take, and how much it's going to cost us to do so. And those agencies do exist. They do give us those numbers based on the previous year's harvest and the current projections. And there's a whole science behind eco management.
Hunting is regulated by the government that you're proposing as a solution. So the government's already put a solution out there, and that's called regulation, including education of the hunters.
The task is too big to have government do it. Think about how many hunters there are, how many permits, and how many critters. If they were tasked with hiring all those people, it wouldn't happen. It couldn't happen. We don't have that much money in the coffers.
They're already there.
Okay, you're going to suggest that there's enough people in the state level game and fish departments to
issue permits,
to hunt for and remove all the animals? No.
Oh no, not to hunt.
Hunt for all the animals.
What?
Nobody said hunt all the animals.
I just said hunt all the animals. I'm giving you an argument that to suggest that the government is going to harvest all the animals is ridiculous. They can't afford the staff it would take to hunt and get rid of all the animals.
To prevent starvation and disease.
Overpopulation. It's not
yes.
But yeah. But they couldn't have enough game wardens. They'd have to have as many game wardens as there are hunters, basically, and then they'd have to send them out, as often as they could to, be as successful as all hunters are. So it would just be a monumental task. Then what they'd have to do is poison them. So it'd be totally gross. If you really said get rid of hunting, it would turn into the government going out and poisoning herds. Maybe flamethrowing them or something gross. Because what are they going to do with all of them? That's a lot of deers. Think about how many deers are harvested by the public. Like if you cook all those and put them in a pile, you can't butcher them. Nobody's going to pay for that. So you're just going to have to burn them or bury them or something gross. Anyway, so
this has gone downhill rather quickly.
But it's all right. Trying to give you another argument. So, so Travis went to hunting. Why do you like guns? He went straight to hunting. I mean, I don't know. I know a couple of people, because I know vegan people that would not give a shit about that. In fact, they'd probably hate all that part of it. But I'm guessing in Nebraska, people are going to go either way. And then, if you're anywhere where there's actual overpopulation of critters, people are going to understand that, I think, more, right? If you talk to somebody in a city, though,
Yeah.
who they think meat comes in a package from the store, and they really think, like, there's no need for guns because there's big cow factories that, kick out meat in plastic packages, that, it's silly, and it's just like, artisan, you know, to,
Lunch meat slices,
yeah, to like
Yeah.
actually grow critters the old-fashioned way.
Well, there's other aspects to owning firearms that go just beyond the hunting too. There's this idea that you may need to defend yourself or defend your family or your home from people that want to hurt you, people that want to harm you. And unfortunately, we do have police, and we have law enforcement agencies that are there to help people, but they can't always be there in time. And a lot of times it's up to you to defend yourself against people that want to hurt you. So there's another part of owning a firearm too. Goes just beyond the hunting aspect.
And I'll go ahead and take the opportunity to throw in another aspect that I happen to enjoy is, much like some people might enjoy golf or bowling or volleyball or softball in the summertime, is the idea of going out there, and whether it's just throwing the ball down the lane and knocking down pins, or whether it's being in a league and competitively bowling against other people or golfing against other people, you can do the same thing in regards to firearms and enjoy it that way. You can be very casual and what we call plinking, just kind of shooting around, having fun, or you can be competitive with it if that's what you enjoy.
Okay, G. I jumped in because I had said on the YouTube side that I converted somebody to a gun owner, and you wanted details. So I'm here.
Okay.
Took a friend of mine who was not a gun guy, who knew that I was a gun guy, who asked me, would I take him to the range and let him see what it's all about. I took him out to my local DNR range and let him shoot everything that I own. I just was putting guns in front of him, one after the other. But we started out with a little 22, and we worked our way up to, he was shooting my 308 bolt action rifle in the end. But he found out that he liked my AR-15. The very next day, he was down at the local gun shop buying an AR-15. Although I told him not to buy the one he bought it anyways. But that's how that went.
Right on.
So I was going to say I had a situation very similar to what David had done and what he had talked about. My best friend and his wife come up and visit us every year, and I'd been talking about, wanting to take them out to the range, and they know I've got a YouTube channel and they watch my videos and stuff. And we're sitting there, and the wife has never grew up in a firearm owning family. We're just kind of sitting around one evening. I said, so you guys want to go to the range tomorrow and just want to go shoot a pistol for the first time? And the wife's like, well, we've been thinking about getting some sort of a firearm to defend ourselves if we need to. And she goes, I've never shot a gun before. I don't know the first thing about them. She goes, well, what do we do? And so, we went upstairs and sat at the kitchen table, and I got one of the Glocks out. It was unloaded. And I said, well, let's just go over the basics of it. I said, let's talk. I said, you need to understand, how it's going to work and what it's going to do. Cause she was so scared about the recoil and worried about that aspect of it, thinking it was going to hurt her wrist or if it was going to jump out of her hands and stuff. And I tried to explain what it feels like when it goes off and how the cycling works and stuff. And I said, this is kind of the basics of how it's going to work. And then we played around with some snap caps in a magazine so she could actually, work with charging the firearm and taking the magazine out and clearing it. And we spent a couple hours just becoming familiar with the firearm. And I talked about the basics of the safety, what you need to know about this gun. And the next day we went out to the range, and she absolutely fell in love with it. And she told me that she wasn't going to go home until she could take that Glock with her. And I informed her that, because of state law, because they're out of state, I could either ship it to a dealer down there and do a transfer, or when I went down and visited him 2 weeks later, I'd bring it with me and we'd go to a local dealer there and do the transfer. And so we went to the, after we did our shooting at the range, she had a great time. And then 2 weeks later, I took the Glock with me down there and we legally transferred it over to her, and she's the owner of it now. And they came back the second summer. That was 2 summers ago. This summer, they brought it back up with them. We went back out to the range for a couple hours, but a couple hundred rounds down the pipe. And she enjoys the part of hitting the bullseye, but she also likes the aspect of knowing she can defend the family if she wants to. And the husband was with too. He shot too. We've been trying to find a gun that he's comfortable with, that he'll want to shoot. Then we got I got the AK-47. And I said, would you like to shoot an AK-47 just once? I said, I'll go put a 2-liter bottle down here, 75 yards down the range, and I'll just let you take some shots off it until you hit it. And she goes, oh, I suppose. She goes, what's it going to feel like when it goes off? I said, you're going to feel a kick a little bit on your shoulder. I said, we'll just do a single round, so that way if you're not comfortable with it, you can hand it back to me. The gun's going to be empty. It'll lock open, or what? I don't know if I had a lock open mag or not. And we did one round. She took a shot and she goes, oh, okay, I can handle this. So we put about 10 rounds in the magazine, and I'm not kidding you. Second shot, she hit the 2-liter bottle. She, was laughing and having a great time with it, and finished out the mag. And I showed her how to clear it out and stuff like that, make sure it's unloaded. And she just was talking about the whole time going back to the house how she never thought she'd shoot an AK-47 on vacation, and she's a bit of a firearms fan now, and she's very much in support of. She is an educator herself. She is very much in support of, supporting teachers to conceal carry in the classroom. And she's really changed her whole attitude about being a gun owner and realizing that we are rational people that want to defend ourselves, and we use the guns for sport and for fun, but we also have the idea that it's there if you need it. So it's been kind of a long process, but I'm happy to see we've got another, family that's been converted to the Pro 2A side and the Pro Firearm side. So it's kind of my success story.
Cool. So while you were saying stuff, telling about that one, chat's I've been asking the chat for questions to ask at you people, so the panel can answer some of these. This one's coming in from Rob C. So why do you need more than one gun? Why do you need 6 or 8?
Oh, because I'll take that one. So because our sport is so wide and spread, there's multiple guns for multiple purposes, right? So whether it's all sorts of different guns for different types of hunting, different types of guns for different types of competition, different types of guns for self-defense. Depending on, people will have usually a different home defense gun than they have a CCW gun. Stuff like that. I mean, I would just try and explain to them we have lots of different guns because our sport's so vast and wide, and that's why a lot of gun owners end up owning more than one gun, is for multiple different reasons. It's hard to have like a one gun do everything, right? So.
Right. What I was going to say, which is very similar to what Dead Horse was saying, is just like, we have different types of vehicles. As far as we have economy cars, we have, 4-door sedans, we have SUVs, we have pickup trucks, all for different reasons because they do different things well. And the reason that someone might want more than one firearm is they have a need for something different, whether it's hunting, whether it's just for fun, whether it's for competition, or whether it's for self-defense. You need different types of firearms for what it is that you're actually doing.
It kind of reminds me of tools out in the garage. You might get tired of all the numbers of tool sets we end up buying, but we've got different types of jobs that require different types of tools. And sure, you can get by with one tool for certain jobs, but it might not be the most efficient tool, or it might wear that tool out quicker if you use that tool constantly instead of something that's more suited to the job.
Another thing I might do is I might ask them, what do they collect, right? Is it old Coca-Cola memorabilia? And then ask them, why do you need all those Coca-Cola bottles? Like, what purpose does that serve, right? And
But a Coca-Cola bottle wasn't designed to kill. No, I'm just kidding. That was an anti.
I was gonna go along with what Travis was saying and Dano, that you have a different tool for a different job. I have several different AR platform rifles, but none of them are exactly the same. Each individual rifle is set up in a different manner for a different job.
We take a second and play host because a bunch of people are asking. I guess they're just showing up what we're talking about tonight. So we've got a panel here. Where are you from, Bass Boy?
I would be from Indiana.
Right on. Then we got Dead Horse jumping in from Utah. We got Dano in Illinois and Travis in Nebraska. I'm down here in Arizona, and the panel is being asked questions by the audience out there, the people that are joining us through the text chats. And you're asking questions that a non-gunner might ask their friend or someone they know who's friendly about guns. So not necessarily gotcha anti-gunner questions. I mean, we've been playing with those a little bit, but mostly the idea for the audience out here is to ask questions, and then I'm relating them to the panel here. So this one that they've been asking or answering or addressing right now is from Rob. Why do you need more than one gun? Why do you need 6 or 8? And they've been answering that. Anybody else want to hit that one? Or I think y'all hit it. Nobody said anything like a kitchen. I think a kitchen might, got like a toaster oven and a microwave and a stove. They all cook food, but sometimes you want different kind of food, different reasons. Like you guys all said it, but if they're in the city, they might not have a garage with tools, right?
Or, in kitchen knives, how many, do I really need a chef's knife block with 24 different knives in it when I can really get by on one utility knife for most of the jobs? Well, yeah, but it's a little bit easier to have a paring knife and have a santoku and have a deboning knife and a fillet knife and a bread knife.
Thank you, Travis. I was just getting ready to say the same thing.
I mean, there's a lot of, yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't have to have that 500 horsepower sports car that's just brand new and all shiny, but it sure is nice, and I have the ability to do so.
There you go. So, there are some good questions that you posted over there. I don't know if that's you or not. There's Pete posting all the questions. The questions those are a lot of the questions that pop up when you talk to somebody that's not a gun person. Where's it at here?
You talking about
why do you on gun channels? Yeah, on gun channels.
I'm giving you guys the questions.
Yeah. Why do you want the kids to do you want us to answer those and start looking those over ahead of you or not?
No. I'm throwing them to you on the side here.
Oh, okay.
So
okay. I was looking on the chat too, so I don't know if you wanted me to think about those. Okay.
No, here's
Gotcha.
So that one again is coming from the gun channel side from Pete there.
Okay.
Will it go off when I'm not ready?
Yeah.
So you don't have to wait. You guys can all jump in on these whenever you want.
On that one, I explained to my friend's wife, how the gun works. Because it's a Glock, with the safety on the trigger, she was worried it could accidentally go off. And I said, I went over the different types of safety mechanisms built into it. That obviously, you don't want to throw it, but if you drop it, there are some safety mechanisms built in, but nothing's 100%. I said, don't fire it until you're ready to put your finger on the trigger. And when your finger's on the trigger, make sure you know exactly what you're shooting at, and don't pull the trigger till you're comfortable pulling the trigger, because the trigger is what's going to cause the gun to go off. As long as you are very careful with that type of weapon and you have proper instruction on it. I'm not going to say it couldn't just go off on its own, but the way it's designed, it's not supposed to go off on its own.
Well, I guess the answer that I would give it is simply that it won't go off unless you pull the trigger, just to try to keep it short and simple.
There you go. But the big thing is, why doesn't it have a safety? I want to use a safety. You get that a lot with people that are new to guns,
That'd be the next question, though, rather than will it go off when I'm not ready? And the answer is no, it won't, unless you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
You can say that. I think Dano summed it up there. No, it won't. I would just maybe add look at every single gun has a trigger guard, because that's the only part that's, the working part or the active part. So, right from the design of the thing, they're building it to be safe. And, like anything, if you Will a hammer hurt you? No, unless you slam it on your hand. But even more than that, it's not gonna be dangerous. Like if you drop it and stuff, they're like engineered. Like they put up. That's why there's so many of them, because they keep putting time and energy to improve them and make them better and safer and stronger and more effective and blah blah blah. But that's a good question. I don't think, as at least for if I had to sit down and start thinking about questions, I don't think I would have asked that one. So, anybody else want to hit that one? Will it go off when I'm not ready?
That's something that when I'm dealing with someone who's new to shooting, the answer to that is no, it will not go off when you're not ready for it, as long as you follow the rules that I'm teaching you.
That's a good point. Like the rules are designed to prevent that, right?
Right.
And they're easy. They're just like procedures, like simple things that you follow that create a safe environment.
It leaves it a bit ambiguous though, because I obviously know what the rules are, and so do you, but that new person doesn't.
Yeah.
So that new person is left a little bit
right. But that's the thing. You're explaining to them that there's a simple set of rules that children and people under severe stress can follow. Very basic, and if you follow all three of them, there's only 3 rules. Follow all 3. It's safe. So just like anything, like
there are 4 rules.
Well, there's 3 basic safety rules, and there's 4 if you want to include the NRA ones, but then there's 6 if you go to other ones. So if you're talking,
I use the NRA rules, just so you understand. I use the NRA 4 basics, and that's what I teach people or tell people.
Okay, well, but it is a point of contention. Whether it's 3 or 4 doesn't really matter, as long as they're either taught the 3 or they're taught the 4. That's what matters.
Well, and then the concept, I guess, is that, and then the next question might be, well, what are those rules? And then you can say it's real simple. We know all what those are. So then, anybody else want to hit that one, or we can go to the next one?
Just one thing to add on with the will it go off when I'm not ready? And I don't think you have this as a question, is is it going to be loud? Am I, is the recoil going to hurt my hands? And then you can kind of talk about what it's going to feel like, what you could compare it to, the noise factor, the hearing protection you're going to be wearing, you're going to be fine. Because somebody who's never fired one before, if they're not acclimated to the gun at all, they have a lot of fears about it because they're fueled by what they've seen on TV and what they've heard from other people and what they think they know versus actually just taking it and going to the range and shooting it, which really changes their,
or they've never been around loud equipment in general. Experience at the 4th of July.
We have a lot of people that work a 9 to 5 and they go to their house in the suburbs, they turn the TV on, and that's it. That's their sensory experience every day. That's just the reality of it.
The idea of a chainsaw or a lawnmower or something like that is foreign to them.
And just my recommendation up front is if you do take somebody out to shoot for the first time, and I'm not trying to stray off the topic here, but do it at an outdoor range. The noise level is just so much less, in my opinion, versus an indoor range, which just, the concussion, who knows what somebody's going to be shooting next to you. You might not be able to move and get away, get some space away from that person shooting the AR next to you, or AK or whatever,
That's certainly preferable, but not everybody has that option.
I know.
One way to mitigate that, though, would be to take somebody to the range first. You don't have to immediately take them out, right? So introduce them, or this is what it's going to be like. Every range has a big glass thing where they can look, and you can go in there, explain to them that next time we go, we're going to rent a slot, one of the lanes, and we're going to have some time in there, and we're going to have, our own lane. We can move our own target. Everybody else is going to be doing their own thing. Unlike an outside range, there's not ceasefires. So everybody's just going to be doing their thing while we are, and it gets pretty exciting. So you can watch as we're, here and see all the commotion, but it's pretty much everybody's doing their own routine. They're shooting, they're reloading, they're checking their targets, they're pulling them back in, they're setting them back out. Everybody's going through their thing. Some people are collecting their brass. That's because it's a very expensive hobby, and they're reloading. They're putting their bullets back together so it saves some money. You can explain what's happening there. So when they're experiencing the range for the first time, it's not like they're in the middle of a, highly choreographed, thing happening, and they don't know what anybody's doing, and they're trying to listen to commands from you. You can eliminate all of that by just taking them to the range that first time. Explain to them, look, this whole section of guns aren't even for sale. These are just for rent. We can give them $7. we can keep coming out here and picking all these guns. Let's start talking about these guns. And all this time they're hearing the subtle boom, 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 bang, 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 right? But they're not even shooting that day. So they're not even worried about it. They're just experiencing this all. You start talking about, hey, what guns do you want? What movies have you seen? Whatever, the age of the person, you start figuring out maybe a plan of what guns you're going to shoot. Now look at all these targets. We can shoot all different kinds of targets. You want to shoot circles? You want to shoot silhouettes? What do you want to shoot? Play a game. There's those tin can type of ones. So, and then you go back and you say, okay, we're going to go on Tuesday or whatever. And now when you go, they've already been to the range once.
Right. This is true. It's not like you want to just go take them out there and take the 454 Cazul with you and just say, here, step up to the line. Here you go. Let's teach you how to fire a gun, and then you turn the camera on and you put it on as a gun fail on YouTube, That's not the way I think we should be doing it. Keep that in mind if that's the only gun you have, you might want to try to find something a little bit smaller from somebody else to take your friends out if you're going to shoot for the first time.
Right.
Yeah, let's take them out with a Smith & Wesson 500 for their first time out shooting. I'd like to catch those guys that do that and just kick them right square in the backside.
We all know that. We're not shaking our fists, this guy. So we're answering another question here, I guess. This one's coming in from Pete on the gun on the YouTube side. Why do you need an assault rifle? Aren't those only for the military?
No.
No, this is not an anti. This is just someone who's asking the question to you.
Right. Well, it's a yes or no question, though. Are they only for the military? And the answer is no.
Come on. He says, why do you need an assault rifle? ? Then he qualifies it with, aren't they just for the military? So there's an open-ended question with a yes or no question.
Number one, there is no such thing as an assault rifle. That is a unicorn term derived by the media to demonize a weapons system that they want to take away from the average citizen.
And something I might point out to him is that there are major differences between that military grade rifle that they see in the action movies versus what the average civilian is allowed to buy without any kind of a special license or permit. And sometimes I'll even point out, like with my wife, we'll look at different models and stuff, and I'll say, this functions exactly like that rifle right there. Well, but that one's got a wood stock, I know, and this one doesn't, but they do the exact same thing. It just kind of throws them a little bit of a curve, like if you're talking like a semi-automatic 223 versus a semi-automatic AR-15 platform versus like a traditional long gun, Say they do the same thing. They just look different. One's black and one's wood. It's the only difference between the two.
Anybody else want to take a stab at that one?
Well, I can go along with that one, Travis. I've got a Ruger Mini 14 that is wooden.
Yeah.
That is wooden, that shoots .223. And then I also have an AR. Actually, I have several ARs, but they both shoot the same exact round. One is wooden furniture, one has plastic furniture. The big difference between the two is weight, believe it or not.
I guess the way that I would attempt to answer it would be is that the military has either fully automatic or select fire rifles. We as civilians typically have one bullet at a time type rifles. And those rifles you're calling assault rifles are one bullet at a time. Those are not your machine guns.
So you might want to say, even though they look like the military rifles, the form and function and performance is not the same. Now, I think we all know the easy answer would be...
I don't know what happened. You sound like you're on the other side of the room or something. Something happened to your mic.
Me? Oh, no. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. I'll flip back.
There you go.
There we go. The easy answer for us is to say, well, I've got a Second Amendment that says I can own one.
Yeah.
And I that's hard. That's why this is really a hard question for me to answer, because that's what I want to say.
Yeah,
but
I can't
you also
say
want to be. Yeah, I
because
also want
I can.
to be polite about it and say, well, here's the deal. It's not they're not the exact same thing as a military grade weapon. The form, the function, the performance, it's not the same thing, you know. And then you talk about the semi-automatic nature and so on, and one bullet per pull, like you said. But that is a hard question for me to answer without getting emotional and saying, because I can,
I mean, for the same reason, people collect cars because they can.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're expensive because they can.
So a lot of the times, I'm making it. You guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times you got to ask, what is the problem with a gun that functions in the way a military rifle might? If you take out the automatic fire rate, then most of our guns are similar, right? So you got to get to the point of what it is they're so concerned about. Is it that they're just reiterating a talking point that black gun bad? Why? There's a street epistemology. I've mentioned it before. You got to ask them questions like, why do you think the gun is bad? Like, what is it about this firearm that it's doing that makes it so much more dangerous than other firearms?
Well, I could
And let
almost
'em talk.
answer the question,
Okay.
that one, because I'm from an anti-gun family, so I've heard these things before, because those are the guns people use in mass shootings.
Right. And that's the rarest thing that you could ever get caught up in. So then you got to say, okay, well, if you're going to get rid of these firearms, you're damaging civil rights for no proof that it will get better. Do you understand that?
That's right. That's part of prevention.
Oh, that's their response?
Yes.
Right. So then it's a non-starter. There's no point in actually trying to bridge a gap with them because
We're not
they're
talking to an anti here. So the
We're-
stage here is where a person who knows about guns and someone who is either recommended to us or knows that we're gun people is not an anti. It's just a non-gun person. And the question they asked you is, why do you need an assault rifle? Aren't they only for the military? So they're not necessarily coming at you with a gotcha.
right. So if it was just a straight up, why do you need that? Well, there's situations like in California, a lot of people go boar hunting with ARs. They're accurate firearms with a relatively mild rifle caliber that they use for hunting boar. And you got a ticket, you can probably take more than one. And so we like to use those because it's pretty easy. That's just one reason. A lot of other reasons, they're fun, just to go target shooting and have fun being in the hobby and enjoying it,
And just
And
like baseball, there's competition.
I actually came up with another part to this whole thing for why you need the assault rifle, quote unquote. The scary features that everybody is afraid of is what makes that gun so user friendly. You can take anyone of any size and stature and make that gun fit them. So that's why we need those.
I like that answer because that addresses the actual reason for it without getting political or assuming anything political.
Yeah, the gun is actually safer to use if you can put a proper grip on it and you've got some sort of device at the end of the barrel that mitigates the flash coming out of the barrel and can absorb the recoil and make it more comfortable for you to shoot better.
Exactly. And like I said, if you can fit that gun to the individual, it makes it even better. For them, it makes it more comfortable, more enjoyable to shoot them as well.
From the personal experience I have with the types of people that are the types of people that ask the question on why do you need an assault rifle, my answer would just be like, it gets all the chicks, and then they would instantly turn through.
Because I'm an Instagram star.
There you go.
I like to never suggest that there's any difference between a semi-auto and a full auto. And there's no point. I think whoever mentioned the focus, the mentioning that assault rifle is a engineered term, and then blowing it off. Okay, well, we're calling it an assault rifle because someone decided to use a Nazi term, but that's really any firearm that looks sort of like a military gun, but slightly different. And like you guys all said, those are great answers. I'll just add, uh, for the times like we had with the LA riots, when there was a mob of people coming down the street, burning and killing. A bunch of people stood on their rooftops with these AR-15s, these assault rifles, and the presence of human beings standing on top of a roof with those was enough to stop an angry mob. It was literally burning and killing. So to just suggest that they're not needed or that they're only for the military is not what one of the main reasons we have access to these things. But then you guys all mentioned all the recreational uses of them. When you go to the range and shoot recreationally, it's just more fun to shoot with something that's ergonomic and useful to shoot instead of shooting one bullet at a time. It's boring.
You can practice your accuracy too if you've got something consistent that you can hold nicely and it's easy to use, right? It's important.
And the other part of that G was just saying, at one time, all weapons were military weapons or military style weapons.
No, I don't like that one, but because that's not true. A lot of them were, sure. The other thing with the AR-15, at least, is you can say, how many of the people that volunteered and were in the military used that thing, and when they got out, they're familiar with it. It's easy for them to remember how to use it and train their spouses and their kids how to use it. You guys already mentioned the ergonomic part of it, so that it's an adjustable gun made for the military, so it's made to handle big fat short people or tall skinny people or anything in between. And it's useful for everything from recreation to competition to hunting to self-defense to national security. And we spend a lot of money developing that gun and training millions of people how to use it. And it's ridiculous to suggest that as soon as they end their enlistment, they're somehow susceptible to violence or something like. So the concept that they're only for the military is crazy, and the idea that their assault rifle is putting the connotation of violence on something that. Anyway, we get into all the numbers and everything. All right, so we got another one here, and we got a bunch of people that are out on the chat that have links and are just not joining for whatever reason. We got people chatting, but remember, we're hopefully asking questions to the panel here. And of course, you're welcome to join the panel. A lot of people already have links, but we're asking questions to the panel as if you were a non-gun person. So the next question coming up is from Uncle Z on the YouTube side. A question that I get from my non-gun owners, or from non-gun owners, is why do you decide to become a gun owner?
I decided to become a gun owner the second time around because I wanted to teach my children gun safety. And the only way to do that is with a firearm.
I was always a gun shooter, and I just always wanted to have a gun. And the opportunity, I guess, came around when we had a issue kind of with somebody that was in the same building with us that led to us moving. That was the primary, that was the immediate goal. But in the short term, it was like, well, I was planning on getting one anyway. So let's go ahead and do that now.
For me, the reason why I decided to become a gun owner was just for mainly for self-defense purposes. The fact that at some point I'd want to get my concealed carry permit meant that I would need a firearm at some point. And also, when I was old enough to legally purchase a handgun, when I turned 21 in Nebraska, I was in college at that time, and I was living in a not so happy neighborhood, and I did somewhat fear for my own personal safety. And so that's why I did have a firearm in the home. At that point, I didn't have a concealed carry permit because I don't think they hadn't passed concealed carry in Nebraska at that point, back in 2001. 2000, 2001. And so I wanted a firearm just for self-defense primarily, and then also target shooting and some recreational shooting too, but mainly for self-defense.
So, according to our founding fathers, all the people constitute the militia. So therefore, every able-bodied man has a duty under the Constitution to become part of the well-regulated militia. So specifically to understand and perform well with the individual weapon currently issued to the regular establishment. So thus, one who has not qualified himself with the AR-15 may not be considered to be a responsible citizen.
Okay. I think Dead Horse went off the rails with that answer, but
Well,
okay.
that's, if you want to interpret the Constitution as
That's
not
actually
necessarily as
the most
law, but
direct to the point.
yeah,
Here.
yeah.
That's not any, let's not pussyfoot around, right? Like that's right directly to the point.
You are
So-
legally obligated to.
that
yeah.
was okay. So you were legally obligated is your reason for becoming a gun owner?
Not legally,
Nah,
not
no, just threw it
legally
out there.
obligated, but that is my obligation as a
There you go.
responsible citizen.
Okay. I got it now. I'm sorry. I said you went off the rails with the answer. I thought you were going backwards with the other question and answering it with this answer. Okay. Don't worry about it, Dead Horse. It's me. I'm overtired.
I just think we have a duty to. I mean, I think it makes our whole society safer. Statistics have shown, right? The states that have like constitutional carry and concealed carry have lower crime. It's shown that when constitutional carry is introduced into a state, crime rates drop, murder rates drop. Those are proven statistics that have been, that you can go back 40 years and find. So I think it's our duty, knowing that hey, we create a safer, more polite society when we carry guns and we own guns. That's why.
But that's a cultural reason that's going to vary from region to region within this country, because there are areas of this country that do not believe that at all, and there's other areas that absolutely believe that.
Well, I can't help if they're not all right.
I mean, but going back to the earlier question about the militia, and going back to that is I can almost see, because again, my entire family is anti-gun. That was a different time. There was a different culture, and this, these are current times. We don't have the same problems that they had back in those days. We don't have a king anymore. I mean, they would just give this litany of all the little nickel and dime differences.
So back in the old days, they had crack addicts doing like home invasions, and they had all the problems we do nowadays.
I'm sure
So
they had.
I don't know. I would make the argument that now we need that more now than they did back then.
Well, alcoholism has been around as long as alcohol. So just because it's a different drug doesn't make it any better.
Well, I'm just using that as one example. But
I think there's a big difference between an alcoholic who's needing a drink and somebody who's addicted to like meth or opium or I don't know, whatever those really hardcore drugs where they have to have a fix and they start going into seizures and then start getting violent.
True alcoholics will go into what's called the DTs, delirium tremors, and yes, they can be as bad as anybody else who's fully addicted to those other things.
Right.
well, either way, I was just making a point that
can be. I think that he's right though, that we've got different situations. You've got highways so people can get in a vehicle and drive far distance from wherever it is they did their crime. You just didn't have that stuff back in the day.
Right. Well, they also didn't have modern medicine, and even in the 1800s, they had to work with very dangerous mechanical machinery with a doctor maybe in the next county if they were lucky.
All right. Anybody else want to take a stab at why did you decide to become a gun owner?
I'm going to hit it with the reason I bought my first guns was I had been robbed at gunpoint and decided that I wasn't going to be a victim to that any longer.
For me, it was simple. I like to sit there and say I had some profound sense of duty and responsibility. Honest to God, I started buying guns and getting these guns because I liked shooting. It was fun. That's honest. That's the honest answer.
So let me just add this element to this. If you're talking to someone who again came up to you, it's either a friend or someone who's an acquaintance from school or church or work or whatever, and they're asking you, why did you decide to become a gun owner? Is your only option to tell them your story, or is it possible to tell them a reason that would be more universal perhaps, or more appropriate maybe to them or to just a new person in general?
I think if you know that person you're talking to and you kind of know where they're coming from in life, you want to do the best thing you can. And your story might not be the right story, but a story that they could relate to is much more important than your story, I think.
That's a personal connection, and I agree with Ghost. If you can make even a minor personal connection with that person, you have a much better chance of them relating to it, even if they don't enjoy it. But they know you, they like you, they know you're of good character. They will more likely take your information seriously.
Yeah, I'm going to say that you would probably tailor it to the individual. You know, if your individual story is going to maybe convert them and you think that that will work with them, you would tell your personal story. If you know the individual and you know that your personal story isn't going to to sway them one way or another, you might use somebody else's story or an anecdote from someone else.
Right. And a great example of that is, somebody walking down the street. Okay, a perfect stranger. They're not going to care what my personal story is. And that's where what David's saying is absolutely correct in that scenario.
All right, if anybody else has anything on that one, we'll throw the next one up, which comes from Pete on the YouTube side. But would I ever really need a gun?
I think if having a gun gives you or your family just 1%, just 1% better chances of surviving some difficult situation, then it's worth it. Just if it increases the odds, just 1%, I think it's worth it.
I think you can use the old cliche and it works. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
I mean, you can go directly to the question too and say, depends on where you live. Likely, if you live in a really nice neighborhood, no. But at the same time, really nice neighborhoods people get broken into all the time. I lived in a neighborhood where someone, was broken into. Wife got the crap beat out of her as the person dragged her around the house, asking for where the jewelry was and all that stuff, while the husband was gone for like 30 minutes. If you base your decisions purely on statistics, then you likely will be okay. But if you were ever on the wrong side of those statistics, then it becomes a moot point, right? Because you are now the statistic. You've just added to the statistic. So that's just one facet of why you would ever want a gun is protection. But having a multifaceted thing that can do more than one thing and be really good at all those things is a really good idea. It's not just for protection, it's for fun.
I would kind of piggyback on Hosh. He makes a great point. I would be willing to bet that people of Columbine and Parkland, Florida, those are pretty affluent neighborhoods. I guarantee prior to those tragedies that people in those communities never thought that their community could be affected by guns. And now look at them.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing is you always look at statistics before the event happens, right? But then when you become a statistic, you or other people Monday morning quarterback on, well, what would have happened if they did? Well, then never be in that situation, never become that statistic, or give yourself something to mitigate that statistic.
An analogy that I have is, you never need a fire extinguisher until you do, and when you do, it's too late to go out and get one.
Yeah, I mean, how many people do you hear of tragedies that happen that say, I never thought it would happen here? A lot of them, most of them, almost all of them.
You hear it all the time, Ghost, and I'm one of those who can attest to some of the statistics. I had 3 times within a 4-year time span where my home was broken into while I was home.
Wow.
And I held the individuals at gunpoint in my home until the sheriff's department arrived. 3 times in 4 years.
I mean, there you go right there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to put out, unless somebody else has one to throw at that one. If someone's asking you, but would I ever really need a gun? And they were going to be swayed by, hell yeah, because of what if you get robbed? Would they even be asking you that? Wouldn't they already be asking you more like, what gun should I buy in case I get robbed? So I'm thinking if someone's asking me, would I ever really need a gun? I think my answer would be probably not. I sure hope not. And most of us never do. Now, do you need it to go to the range or to have fun or to exercise or write or to, have an investment or to, have a new hobby or to meet new people that are salt of the earth? Yeah, then you definitely need one for that. But again, if we're talking to a person in the fence, I'm not interested in fear and like, oh yeah, what if you get robbed? Like, what if that 1 in a million chance when you get robbed? And
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think that most of us, if not all of us, I would like to think all of us are in that same mindset of we do all this training, we all this practice, we have all these guns for that what if scenario. But I think all of us would like to know that we would never have to use our gun. If that's the case, then we're living in a safe place, and that's going to be a good life if we never have to use it in self-defense, not hunting, but in self-defense. And yeah, I think you're right. Is if you're honest and say, I hope I never have to use my gun. But once again, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah, definitely.
Something that was mentioned earlier, and I think it deserves a little bit more discussion, is the idea of I live in a safe place. Bad things don't happen where I live. I live in a safe neighborhood. Bad people or evil people don't come to where I live to do bad things. That fallacy, that belief system. And that's why they think, of course, I never need a gun. I live in a safe neighborhood. That's why I spent $300,000 to go live where I live. So I don't have to live in a bad neighborhood, thinking that only bad things happen in bad neighborhoods when that's not true.
The bad guys like going to the expensive neighborhoods and the nice neighborhoods now because that's where the product is that they want to steal.
That's where the good stuff is. Yep.
I mean, that's Cerritos in a nutshell, right? We're right in the middle of Southern California. It's really expensive to live here. Really great schools. It's really safe. Our police are under 4-minute response time often on average. I think it's something like that. It's really insanely low. But we have thefts all the time. We've had home invasions. We've had my wife's car was parked in front of her parents' house for 30 minutes. They broke the window, opened it, stole some stuff. Another guy got pistol whipped. So bad things come to you. That's the thing is it's like I hate you have to appreciate statistics, but the fact that people look at it when it's a really, really bad thing and they go, well, I'm going to be fine. Well, it's a really, really bad thing though, if it comes into your town and targets you out for doing its bad thing. You got to be prepared for that or not. I mean, but then you have no options, right? Then you're at the mercy of the actor who is acting upon you, right? You've got no option at that point.
I think an honest answer to that question also, G, could be honestly is maybe you don't need a gun. And that's okay. And I have no problem with someone that doesn't want to own a gun or be a gun owner, but just don't infringe on my ability to have one. Just because they may not want a gun doesn't mean that they're anti-gun. It just means they personally might not choose one. So sometimes the answer is, you know what? Maybe you don't need a gun. Maybe you don't want a gun. But do you have a problem with me having a gun? If the answer is no, then that's okay with me. It sounds bad, and that might be the wrong answer for some people, but I don't need everyone to be a gun owner. I just don't want people to say that I can't have one.
No, I think that's super valid because really, I mean, we don't get a dollar if they become a gun owner. I mean, we got a better world, I suppose, if they become a gun owner, but we're not getting paid nothing.
Yep.
And isn't it always better to have them not buy a gun than become a 9mm shooter?
Oh man.
Here we go. Here we go.
I mean, if they're gonna have to back me up in Walmart, I'd rather they have a 9mm than a Super Soaker. So oof.
I got a handful of candy bars.
All right,
That's why you go ahead.
We have another one coming from Rob C on the YouTube side, I think. Why do you have more security on a smartphone to keep others out than on guns?
I don't.
This isn't supposed to be an anti-gunner, so we're not. This isn't an accusation. This is someone who's, at least the idea was that this is coming from someone who's just unaware, and they're asking, why do we have more security on our smartphones to keep other people out than we do on guns?
I actually don't have security on my phone, and I have a gun safe. So
that's not. I mean, but the honest answer to that one, technology wise, is well. Have your hands ever sweat before? And have you ever tried to use the finger reader on your phone when your hands are sweaty? It doesn't work, does it? Well, that's the same thing with guns. You're in a high stress environment, and you go to grab your smart gun, and you try to use your thumbprint reader on it, and all of a sudden it's like invalid fingerprint, and then now you're like, okay, well, I guess I can throw it at them.
Now I have a rock I can throw.
Right. So that is an interesting argument that a lot of some gun people have looked at, like, well, how can we use technology to improve a firearm? The problem is making something more time you use it is only begging for failure. And people train hours and hours and hours to deal with the minute numbers of failures that firearms have now. And doing anything that can increase that amount of failure is really not worth it. Again, going back to the random slim chance that you may ever be in an altercation, you want that thing to work every time you pull it.
If you need to use your gun, then that means it's a life and death situation. And that means time is of the essence, which means I don't want anything that's going to take me a split second longer than I need to be able to use my gun to defend myself.
My gun says it needs to upgrade its firmware. I need to go to a Wi-Fi connection, guys. Hold on. Don't attack me.
Oh, it's going to install updates right now. Oh, man. Okay, well, maybe I don't need it till tomorrow morning.
Yeah, come back when I can update my firearm.
Hold on, I got a blue screen of death I need to reset here. What's that? Control, Alt, Delete. Yeah.
Well, and the simplest electronics that have failed on us.
Oh, yeah.
But in the simplest terms of that question is you're talking about security features to protect privacy with the cell phones. But let's just say in the simplest terms, you're talking security protection. What most people who would ask that question don't understand is that most firearms have at least 3 levels of safeties on them. They have internal safeties, firing pin blockers, manual safeties. So if you're just talking about the security of a gun, then there are a lot of people that ask that question that just aren't educated on the fact that there are a lot of safety mechanisms built into the mechanics of a firearm.
And most responsible gun owners keep their guns locked up or on their person or in their presence and don't, just leave guns lying around on a counter or something like they might their cell phone, right? So it's that's a whole different world. I definitely pull my cell phone out and leave it sitting places I never would my gun, right?
Right.
Exactly.
The tool argument's another important one. It's just a tool. It's not good. It's not bad. It's what you make of it. It's what the person using it does with it. So it's not inherently bad. It's dependent. Responsibility of the user is the most important thing.
And I hate to use the cliche argument that a lot of people that we use, and including myself, will use the car argument. But if they're so worried about that kind of security, then when are they going to have fingerprints or eye detection to start a vehicle? If they're not doing it with vehicles, then why would they do it with guns? I mean, you're talking about people that are just uneducated at that point.
Or they
Usually,
saw some news article on it and they think that's the new thing now that's going to just happen overnight on every gun.
I usually avoid hypocrisy arguments, although you're completely correct. For people that are fence riders, like I try not to point out the hypocrisy of something until I learn that they're like kind of on my side. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Anything else with that one? Why do we have more security on smartphones?
Because they're protecting data, personal data that somebody could F you up on a blue collar level, right? Like they don't even have to be there and they can F you up by getting your information. So we do things to protect that information.
There's
A firearm still, if somebody steals your firearm, let's say they were just going to steal your firearm. If they decided to do nothing with it and just protect themselves with it, then that firearm's not committing a crime. It's still just a tool. It's still just doing its thing, sitting there, not doing anything. And so it's kind of they can't steal information off of your gun, right? So that's why we don't protect it the same. That's one easy reason.
Would you want to bring up any stats in that situation, like about the security as far as like, oh, like knives and cars and stuff like that? Like, how secure are those and how many people do those injure and hurt?
That's the hypocrisy argument. That goes back to the hypocrisy argument. You can, again, if they're already with you or they're on your side, then yeah, absolutely, you can point to those things. But they're kind of already on your side, and that's just kind of the cherry on top or the icing on the cake. You don't want to go down that road because it sounds to them, if they're truly not picking a side, that you're trying to move the argument away from the gun. So it's better to just discuss gun stuff with that person than say, look at knives, look at cars, like don't do that. Just kind of focus on the question. Let them talk a lot. That's why I keep saying, like, let them talk a lot. Like like if they ask a question, ask a couple questions back at them and see like where they're at, what they really feel.
I agree. And you're talking about debate mechanisms there, and if you allow someone to talk long enough, they will show you their hand. They'll show you exactly what their point is, what their thought process, and you can exactly listen to them and then kind of bit by bit, not argue, but discuss their problems instead of trying to force your issues. Let's discuss their issues.
Yeah, so there's I'll say street epistemology again. I know, what's the other one? Verbal judo, I think you've mentioned before. Street epistemology specifically only asks questions, and they ask questions targeted not towards your point of where you're trying to get them to go, but to question the individual you're talking to's deep-seated either conscious or unconscious beliefs or biased or unbiased beliefs that they have. So it's a very interesting way to discuss things with people, and this would be one of those things. It's like you can answer them and say, yeah, give me a reason why your gun's less secure than smartphones, and then you can say, well, why does that question matter to you? Why do you think that's important in this dialogue, right? And then they'll answer and say, okay, well, you think that you think that there is security that exists that could protect a firearm from being used inappropriately, stuff like that. Start walking down the water, the path.
Bring up the failures of phone security. Bring up about how none of the phone security measures stop a criminal that really wants to get into your phone or wants to, like, none of it works.
Right, but again, that's a hypocrisy argument, though. I'm saying, like, just walk them through it. Like, say, okay, so you feel that phones do a really good job of protecting security, right? So nobody's phones gets broken into, that kind of thing. And then they'll obviously, so you ask a question instead of pointed out a fact, and they'll obviously go, oh no, yeah, of course. And it's like, do you think a mechanical device such as a firearm, we could put like iPhone level circuitry in it to do that level of protection? Okay, yeah. And I'm like, do you think if you need a firearm, do you think you should be fumbling around with your fingerprint on it or typing in a code or using your cell phone to connect to it to unlock it, or have a wristwatch on it on your arm that unlocks it? Obviously, I'm giving you all the smart technology I know about the firearm. So you can just give them one example.
Hush, a lot of that technology is available and they've tried it and it has failed.
No,
it does not function
that's
the way
the
that
point he's trying to make.
My point. But so help me out here. If all you're doing is pointing out facts, and this person is truly a fence sitter or maybe a little leaning against guns, pointing out the obvious and just telling them this is fact, you win no points. But if you can ask questions that you're asking in a way that doesn't sound like you truly know their answer, or you're actually concerned, like you're interested in what they think, you're doing a mind trick on them that helps them walk through their own unseated and unconscious biases in this topic. So when you start laying things down, like, do you really think like we can have just a phone, like a watch on our wrist, and we can hold a gun and it'll unlock all the time consistently when we need it? And then, you know, they'll say absolutely. And say, okay, well, I mean, that's kind of interesting. It's a pretty complicated mechanical thing. It's not just like your phone that just connects to a computer, right? Where you right? There's a mechanical aspect of it. Does that make it more complicated, do you think?
What about if we asked them if there was a rappelling harness and you were attached to your safety line with this device, and with you know, if you were to wave your bracelet in front of it, it's gonna electronically disconnect or whatever. Like, is that something you're gonna, you know, feel safe with? Like, you're gonna add an electronic safety device to your mechanical, you know, safety harness? Like, are you gonna trust an electric lock to stay locked while you're hanging from it?
I mean, that's where you could start with. When you start going down that road, that's where you can start talking about the hypocrisy thing. You could say like, hey, have you seen those locks like Schlage and all those companies make them where you can just key in your code? Like, would you put one of those on your door? Oh, probably not. You know, I would be worried about so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, same kind of deal. I'd rather just put my gun in a safe when it's not on my person. That safe's bolted to the ground, and it's got a good lock on it. And when I need my gun, you know, I can only really use one gun at a time, and that's the one I carry. Or when I'm going to the range, you know, whatever. So that's generally how I keep my guns. You know, what do you think about that? And, you know, dialogue.
I'd tell you another point that you could bring as far as the technology side for the cell phone argument or whatever computer argument, that anything that has electronics can be hacked. So if they can hack your cell phone, they can hack your phone,
Right.
your computer.
Right.
What makes people think they couldn't hack your code for your gun? I mean, you can make it as simple terms as that. I mean, you know, it's anything electronical can be hacked by somebody.
That's when you're talking to like a conspiracy theorist friend of yours.
Exactly.
And you're like, dude, they'll blow your dick off. They'll hack your gun. Never appendix carry a smart gun.
But if you're talking a smart gun, but I like that term, by the way. But if you start talking about a smart gun, then maybe they see the idiocy in their theory. They're like, well, that's just stupid. That's the point. You know, why would someone want to hack a gun? That's my point. So why would you have to worry about these electronic safety measures if there's really no point to them? Just for extra safety, you know? And maybe you can point out the holes in their theory.
I mean, I'll point out the obvious. A lot of these questions are coming from a place of, I don't want to change and I don't want to ever be proactive. I want everything to change around me so that I don't have to learn anything and live in my bubble that I live in. That's that. I'd rather not understand firearms. I'd rather ask you to change to make your firearms less dangerous.
What? No, these aren't anti-gun questions.
No,
These
no, I know, but understand where it's coming from, right? I'm not saying... Understand what I'm saying. These people, this hypothetical person we're talking about is not technically anti-gun, but they are asking anti-gun leading opener questions that they're either heard online or watched on the news or whatever. These are not generally questions you hear from people that are open to firearms. They're going to ask you, what kind of safe should I get? What kind of law, you know, they're going to ask you more pointed questions.
You're not those questions. That just happens to be the questions, but you're right. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I'm
cool. Was to address it as if it was that, like, you know, middle of the road person who you know is middle of the road, but they might be asking a leading question.
Right. So I'm cool with hypothetical man.
Like, you know, what's the best caliber or something like that.
Yeah. I'm cool with hypothetical gun questioning man. I'm not saying they're anti-gun. I'm saying that these questions, and often the questions you'll hear from technically non-pro-gun people, are these very broad, open-ended questions that really are getting asked to find a flaw in your answer. And so you give a poignant 2-minute long response, and all of this gets ignored, and they'll focus on the center part that just goes down this rabbit hole narrative that they're trying to go to. And even non-gun people will do that.
No, I agree with you 100%. That's what everybody always does, but that's 100% what these kind of questions would be, and that's why I think it's interesting to talk about them.
Yeah.
Because to the wrong person, a question about whatever XYZ is just going to bounce right off of them.
Right.
So I think, a big part of this is to hear what everybody's answers are, so that ideally we've all got a Rolodex or a file, I guess, a file cabinet. And when somebody comes up, we can read them and we can go, okay, I think Dano's answer worked for this, or Dead Horse's answer would work better for this guy.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just saying be cognizant of where the source material might be coming from. I'm not saying the person is the negative influence. I'm saying just be cognizant of where it may lead, right, when you're answering these questions.
So we've been asking the panel questions that are coming from the people watching out on the gunchannels.com text chat and on the platform that hates our property and hates the things that we value. And the people that are asking questions as non-gun owners, not antis, but as non-gun owners, and then I'm relaying them to the panel here. So this next one comes from, what's this guy's name? Clever Tech. I'm not sure what his name is.
Clever Tech.
But he does have a link to this, not only in Gun Channels on a text chat, but also in an email, because I don't know how he needs it, but I'll get it to him like 300 different ways. Now, Ghost can't keep him out of his chat. I can't get him into this chat. So we're going to get him in.
I try to keep him out. Yeah.
I heard they're actually attached at the hip, like kind of a Siamese thing, and so they're just kind of one comes with the other, I guess. But I don't know.
Man,
So,
I tell Clover on a weekly basis the wrong day and time. He still shows up on time. I don't know. I don't get it.
So he says, "This
The
is
magically delicious."
Hacking your smart gun. So
Do we have other parents in this chat right now? Do we have other parents?
Yes.
Okay.
everybody except
I'm not saying that non-parents don't have a good answer to this. I'll answer it quickly and then I'll let other people talk. So if I don't know the gun owner,
let me answer the question.
Oh, yeah, I read, but okay. See, I've been
Here's
so
the gun.
focused on
Here's me
reading.
jumping over it. Okay.
You were calling me out on not reading, and there I'm trying to read.
Yeah. Where does jumping the gun come from? Where does jumping the gun come from? Okay, so that's not the question. The question is, I am a bit concerned with my kid spending the night with your kid because I hear you are a gun owner. How do I know my kid is safe?
Well, first I'll ask, like, how old are these kids we're talking about? If this is a consensual relationship, that I don't want to be involved in this particular discussion. I'm just joking. If I don't know the gun owner, that, like, if I personally don't know the gun owner, or we haven't really talked before, I might be hesitant to let them spend the night over there because I don't know anything about how they handle their firearms or their level of maturity when it comes to them. I may know the child, and so I can draw a lot from that, or may met the parent at a birthday party or whatever. But I would be hesitant to a certain point. However, if I knew that they did the right stuff, then I would just tell my kids, like, hey, listen, you're not to ever play with a gun without an adult around. If your friends are playing with firearms without adults around, get out of there. Go find an adult, particularly the adult of the house, the mother or father, the homeowner. But if they're not there, just leave. Just leave. Call me and I'll come get you.
It's interesting because I thought the question was aimed the other way, is if you were having a child over at your house.
Yeah, of course. I don't know what he's thinking.
Oh.
I would sit there and tell them two things. The obvious answer is I'm going to keep my own child safe. So if my child's safe, then your child should be safe. But the second one, which is probably the most honest answer, is you're going to have to trust me. And if you don't trust me, then don't let your kid come to my house.
If it's the kid spending the night at our house, then it's just like, they're locked up. It's fine. If I need them, I get them. If I'm not, and if it's not on me, then it's in a safe. It's fine.
And I agree with Hush. Keep it simple. Keep it short.
Also, don't. I don't want your kids here anyway.
All right, 4 kids, tons of sleepovers, back and forth and stuff. I've only had that question posed to me one time through, I can't even count how many different houses and kids, like, spending the night and stuff, right? I've only had that question posed to me one time, And that question wasn't brought to me by the parent. It was brought to me by my kid, because like apparently the parent asked their kid to tell their kid to tell my kid to, you know, to tell me, right? So it came, it wasn't even like I was talking to the parent at all, right? I never even talked to the kid, right?
That's real adult.
So, well, I think that's a realistic way to, you know, because chances are, like, if a kid's gonna spend the night at your house, chances are that kid's already going to know you have guns. He's probably, your son or daughter or whatever's probably already told them about your gun collection and that they shoot too and stuff. So chances are that like that parent's already gonna know you have guns. Chances are they're never gonna ask like, oh, do you have guns in your house? Like chances are like they're already, that parent's already been told, oh, he has guns. And what that parent's really asking you is like, hey, is like, are your guns put up? Are they safe? Like, that's usually how I think it's really going to work out. Because I don't know, maybe if they're really young kids and all that, like, but like I don't know, like, you know, I never even like brought out the guns to young kids, you know, and stuff like that, unless I specifically took them out shooting, which of course I would already have their parents' permission, right? But sleepovers and all that, like I'm thinking like sleepovers really started for my kids like around 10, 11 and up, right? So realistically, like those parents already knew, all those parents have already knew I had guns before their kids ever came to my house. And the one time I was asked, all they wanted to do is make sure that their kid couldn't get a hold of them.
How old are you in grade? How old are you in like 5th grade?
11.
10, 11,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's probably about when you start sleeping over, huh?
I mean, we've had kids stay over, and my oldest is 5, so I don't know.
Yeah, you're in California. We don't know what happens out there.
I know, right?
All right, well,
My safe is big enough. We just put the 5-year-olds in the gun safe. That's just
all you parents get some notebooks, and
There you go.
I'll teach y'all how to parent here. So the question was, I'm a bit concerned with my kid spending the night with your kid because I hear you're a gun owner. How do I know my kid is safe? You're like, oh, that's a great question. So I'm not sure your kid is educated on firearms. It sounds like you haven't taken that opportunity. So why don't you and your kid come on over and we'll go through the Eddie Eagle curriculum, and you know, we'll chat about what guns are, and then your kid will be educated, and so you know my guns are, you know, blah blah blah, and then maybe we can go out to the range next weekend or something. So that's like I see that as a massive opportunity to bring somebody else on board.
To tell somebody else how to parent.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Winning friends and influencing people, G.
I can't believe that's a mansplain parenting, did y'all? All right, so any other questions coming in from people out there? That was the point of the show tonight, to talk about, you know, people that are not gun people, and talking to them and answering questions. And thanks to everybody who participated. I think it was an interesting format to have the people who are out there watching and participating in the text chat throw questions in, and then to hear the different responses from the panel. Got a bunch of different variety in the panel here tonight. Let's see, we try to feature a gun shop every night. It's one of the reasons we do the show daily. And David, you're the new person here. What's the last gun shop you visited? Let's feature that one tonight.
Kempf's Gun Shop in Michigan City, Indiana.
It's like temporary.
Say that again.
What's it called?
Kempf's, Kemps, Kempf's
Okay.
Gun Shop.
AEMPF.
Yeah,
Okay.
in Michigan City, Indiana. They're more into the reloading and all than any place else around me. So that's the reason that I go there. I'm getting into reloading now.
Very cool. It says since 1952, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they've been there forever.
How big a shop is it? We don't see any pictures here, really.
The shop itself is probably about 3,000 square feet total. they do a lot of the cowboy action shooter stuff there as well. You were showing just a second ago. But they do a lot of cowboy action shooting. They do the clothing for cowboy action. They also do the all the guns for cowboy action. And then, like I said, the reloading stuff.
Does this look familiar, Dano? Does this look familiar right here? Does this look familiar, Dano?
Yes, it does.
Except the one I sold Dano had a big hole in it.
That shelf that you were showing there of all the reloading stuff is my favorite section right now.
Is this a picture of Miklik? Looks like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a picture of Jerry.
Is there a 5% discount if there's a hole in it?
No.
I like
5%.
that those ARs are just like sitting on the ground. Just sitting on the ground level.
Yes, and they still do that.
That's
believe
funny.
it or not.
They can't even reach high enough to get under the barrel, like the barrel pegs. One gun is resting on them right now.
That's a good point, yeah. Like every single one of these things, like little
Yep.
bolt ups are just sitting there.
Leaning
because-
up against the wall.
Because to lower that little strip there would be far too much work.
They got all these cats. What the hell? We should put George. Somebody take George over there. Somebody
Take
my
Ammo
black
Cat with me.
Take my black cat and go have it live with them.
Actually, the cats aren't there anymore. Those pictures are old. Those cats are gone now. Like, I think 2 years ago they lost the last one to leukemia.
Jesus. You got some leathers.
What the hell?
They
This
got
is-
horses. They got
This is
horses.
the wilds of Indiana.
Actually, they do own, the people who own the gun shop own horses, and they also run. There's a rod and gun club that their family runs as well, and they run the
They've
gun
got-
club shooting range, but nobody can get it. Nobody can get into the gun range anymore.
They've got some
They do-
Omex statues too. That's awesome.
Now that looks like Indiana because those other pictures were not in Indiana. I've been in Indiana. I lived in Indiana. That's not Indiana.
The rolling hillsides of Indiana.
Did you see the Easter Island?
That's why I said
Monolith?
the Omex. No, that's an Omex head. That's not Easter Island. That's South America.
I wouldn't gum for my dum dum.
Pretty cool shop.
Again, that's not South America either.
Looks like they're open every day except Sunday,
Yes,
10 to 5. Shitty hours. I don't like those.
Yeah,
hours.
what's up with gun shops not being open on Sunday?
And 10 to 5. So you can't go there before work. You can't go there after.
Yeah,
work.
what the heck?
They're on
They're
Saturday.
working for the retiree community.
Saturday it closes at 4. They're-
Jesus.
I don't like that part of it, but I like everything else about the shop.
they're getting older,
Yeah.
and they're wanting to retire. And
these
their
original
kids
owners?
want nothing to do with this shop.
Well,
So these are the original owners from 1952.
No, this is the second set of owners of it. The original owners, they still live within the town, but the original owner, he's 82 or 83 years old, and his wife is in her late 70s, and then the owners who are there now are in their 60s, and they want out, and their kids want nothing to do with it. And basically it's really, really hard to get anyone else who will buy a gun shop because of the hassles with the ATF and all of that fun, happy.
that sucks. That's the next way they'll get you. Start taking out the gun shops.
Yeah, we're probably going to lose that particular gun shop within the next 5 years.
That sucks. We've seen one. I seen a shop in San Antonio leave, and they had it for sale for a while, and nobody bought it. Shops, it's tough to sell them. They're a lot of inventory, and if it's been sitting there, it's tough to move it or to sell it to another owner or whatever. They get liquidated and just gone. So it looks like Roll Call's going to start a GoFundMe or a Indiegogo. I'd recommend Indiegogo.
Yeah, I he's going to start an Indiegogo to become a board member for the NRA now.
No, to buy that shop, and
He said it's in his city.
Oh, Roll Call's going to buy that shop now? That would be cool.
Run it as his own. The question is if he's going to keep the name or if he's going to rename it, and then what he's going to rename his shop to.
He'll rename it to Rants and Raves Gun Shop.
Ooh, there you go.
What is it? You broke up.
The Hit or Miss Gun Shop.
Oh.
No, just
No,
kidding.
the Rants or Raves. Rants and Raves.
Also known as the Mostly Miss.
Oh.
Ouch.
All right. So we've been chatting for a bit. Like I say, I think it was a neat format. Kind of happened or evolved today. Thanks, Travis, for jumping in and giving an idea there. Let's see. We have a bunch of people jumping in. Hosh jumped in from California, and Ghost jumped in from Arkansas. So thanks everybody for jumping in today. It is Wednesday, or it was Wednesday, so tomorrow's Thursday. There's all kinds of stuff happening on gun channels. Travis has his show tomorrow. Is it Sarge tomorrow or Obnoxious?
Sarge is on. Usually comes on after me. I think it's about at 8 o'clock East Coast time, if I'm not mistaken. 7 o'clock Central.
And Matt does a chat. Yankee will do a chat. Clover will do a chat, and then we'll be back here tomorrow night, probably late. And then Friday is a bunch of other stuff. So thanks everybody for jumping in. Anybody want to say anything before we head out?
My live stream's on Friday. Ham Radio Crash Course.
What do you got coming up Friday?
This computer, where is it? Where's my finger? This computer, this radio, right here over here. I'm putting a touch screen on it. So it's going to be a radio, but a radio with a touch screen. And that's a $120 radio.
And is what, it's some sort of a modular Lego type of radio, it sounds like?
No, I mean, the board that you get is all inclusive. Like, that's the whole radio right there. That's everything you need. And then you can just attach the wires to it. You can use any kind of case you want. I just happen to have a manufactured case, which is like $40, that I put all the parts into. But yeah, you can use that. It'll work just about any band on HF radio. That's the bands that allow you to talk around the world kind of stuff.
So it's sort of like putting together a desktop. You just have the ability to put the components in that do exactly what you're trying to tune it to do.
It's kind of like that. You got to solder some components, mainly all these wire leads and stuff. These all go to the front panel, which is where you connect your headphones and your Morse code key and your microphone and all those different goodies. All this stuff that's on the front panel, there's connections you have to solder, which is obscured because it's on the front panel already. Mainly it's a ready to go radio out of the box. None of the components on the board itself need to have any work done to it. It comes just like that.
So then it's really just if buying a radio isn't nerdy enough for you, you're like, I need to buy a radio that I have to solder first.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to buy something that I have to fix before I can use it. Yes.
It's like buying a kit gun. Think of it like it's the 80%er of radios, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Because it's basically 100% radio. You just needed to put it somewhere so that you can use the connection. So it's the 80%er of radios.
And then it saves money? Question mark?
Yeah, because it's $120 for all band HF, which is like really cheap. That's
so
cheap.
Normally that would be the equivalent of how many hundreds of dollars?
Probably 300 to 500, depending on.
Okay.
So
All right, cool.
it's the equivalent of a Galaxy radio that you put together yourself instead.
A Galaxy radio. I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's a ham radio that truck drivers buy and have converted from ham to CB channels.
It's a 10 meter. It's like a president. Yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, there you go. The president is a different brand,
Yeah,
or a different manufacturers, but same basic idea.
Yeah, so this, again, you don't have to modify any of the circuitry on the board. There's no modification of that. You just have to attach the wires for your antenna and your microphone and that kind of stuff.
All right, right on. So stay tuned for Fridays for the ham radio crash course. And
Remember to have a big outro, like the intro.
Whatever. And then Gary does his foul territory on Fridays also. Also Free Patch Friday. That's the best time to buy stuff. So now, does anybody have a quote? Dano? Dead horse?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
A free man must not be told how to think, either by the government or by social activists. He may certainly be shown the right way, but he must not accept being forced into it. Jeff Cooper.
The guys and gals of gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com.